So what the subject matter here is as follows. I want to show you the picture. We're learning about the Mishkan, the sanctuary as it's called, the house for Hashem. So the Mishkan was made, as you know, of interlocking boards, cedar wood, 10 cubits high, which is probably the height of this ceiling. And it was covered initially by a series of tapestries and hides, actually 3. The first covering was a embroidered tapestry. On top of that was ram skin dyed red. And then on top of that, there's actually 2 opinions. Exactly, if the second cover and the third merged or they were separate. But the Torah mentions, which we're looking at now, that Tachash skin was placed on top. So here's the Tachash skin, as we'll see, is multicolored. It's kind of represented here. It's not very multicolored, but now the 2 views are whether the ram skin was inserted in the center of it. So it's one cover, or ram skin and Tachash skin on top. 2 views. The view of Rabbi Nehemiah, it's 2 skins, and Rabbi Yehuda says it was one inserted in the other. Okay, so that's the picture. Now let's look at the Rashi. What is it? The Torah calls it a Tachash skin. Let me just get up the Rashi that I sent you. What is it, Friday? So look at it together. Wait, give me the paper. If you don't mind, pass me the paper. There should be enough for everybody there. Yeah. So it says Tchoshim Tachash skins. Look at the translation, which is not exactly accurate. Min Chaya. Min Chaya means a type really of wild animal. There's Behema and there's Chaya. And the reason I say that is because the Gemara, the Talmud, actually debates whether it was what species was it? First, was it kosher? Was it not kosher? Was it a behema? Was it a chaya? And there's 2 opinions. Rashi, it appears, is like deciding, according to one of the opinions, that it was not a domesticated. Behema means a domesticated animal, but chaya, a wild animal. And that's our first question. Like, why get into that debate? What has Rashi, as we all know, wrote a commentary that fits in and explains the pasuk, the verse at the simplest level. What's the indication? The Gemara argues. Rashi, the simple level, it's a chaya. So that's our first question. What compelled you from the simple verse itself that it is in fact not a behema, not a domestic animal, but a chaya? Then he continues, and it was only temporary. Another question. Why is Rashi pointing this out? Rashi is not a commentary that gives us interesting information. Rashi is only to explain what the verse is talking about. The verse uses the word Tchoshim. The reader is unfamiliar with the word. He told us it's a kind of a creature. So why does he add it was only temporary? So the simple answer to that is, we'll answer right away. The student learning says, I never heard of this. How come? Why didn't you hear about it? So right away, Rashi has to say, you know why you never heard about it? Because it's extinct. It doesn't exist. Okay. So we've answered that question. Then he goes on. And it had many colors. Lakach meturgum sasguna. That's why the Targum is a translation. It's the first translation of the Torah into any other language other than Hebrew. Actually, it's the second. It was done earlier by the Talmud, King Talmud, the 70 elders. But Onkelos was a Roman convert, and he translated the Torah into Aramaic, and it's called Targum. Targum just means translation. And friends, as you all know, it appears in every standard Chumash. And in fact, we are supposed to, every Shabbos, before Shabbos, read the Torah portion, or at least on Shabbos, and its Targum translation. So the Targum translates the word Tachash Sasguna. What's this word Sasguna? It's actually an acronym. Sas means to rejoice, and Gvuna means color. That it's Shesaso Mispar Gigvan Shala. The animal rejoiced and took pride. Mispar means take pride in its colors, like the peacock kind of although this is not a bird, this is an animal that prided itself in its colors. So our questions now on Rashi are, again, Rashi's mandate is simply to translate, to make, read, understand what the Torah is saying. So here, get this word Chashim. What is this? So he told us it's a creature. Our first question was, a creature, not an animal? Like, why make that differentiation? Okay, you told us it's temporary. We have to be told that because we're wondering why we never heard of it. Why does he then go and quote the Targum? Why? What is it? The continuation of Rashi. That's why the Targum calls it Sasguna, and then goes and explains that the Targum, this is not his mandate to explain it. Just stop. He's come to could have said it's a creature and was only temporary, and that's what they used. What's compelling Rashi to offer us, give us all this information to explain the Targum? And one more question. The Targum says the word Sasguna, and the word Sasguna means sos, it means rejoice. Guna is color. Rashi adds not just rejoice, but umispor takes pride. If explaining the Targum, why are you putting in another word? And wouldn't the reader anyway kind of figure it out? So the whole thing's a bit of a mystery. What exactly is going on here? So here's the basic answer to the question. Rashi is not, we thought in our first question, why is he saying it's a wild creature as opposed to domesticated? He's not actually going into that discussion. He means a creature as opposed to a name of a dye. The reader could easily read the pasuk and think it's a kind of dye. Look at the pasuk on top. Ram skins dyed red, and then v'oiris tchashim. I might think it means those same hides dyed tchashim. I never heard of this word. I mean, it's a kind of a dye. It's a kind of a color. So the reader should make this mistake. He says chaya. He just means a living creature. He didn't mean, as we assumed, because we have this background. We learned the Talmud. We thought that Rashi is going into it's a behemoth. No, he's not going to that debate. He's going to a living creature as opposed to what? As opposed to a dye. Now, what compels that? So if you look at the verse clearly, we can see why. Because it says, here's the key. In the Hebrew, you should make dyed ram's wool, and then it adds v'oiros and hides tchashim. That and, if it means the ram's hide should be dyed red, and this tachash color, if tachash is a color, you don't have to say and hides, indicating another kind of hide. We're talking about the ram's wool, the ram's hide. You should have read v'oiris elim adamim v'tchashim. Take ram's hide and color it red and color it tachash, which is a kind of a dye. So the fact that the Torah says the word again v'oiris and hides, meaning it's a different hide. So tachash, says Rashi, does not mean a color. It actually means an animal. I never heard of it. It was a what? It's extinct. But now the reader's thinking they had to dye the ram's wool, the ram's hide. I told you before, the first one was a tapestry, very elaborate. So when you're inside the Mishkan, you looked up, you saw the various designs. On top of that is not just ram hide, but dyed. So why isn't this one dyed? There's no mention that you dye it, so it's got to be something special. Why isn't it treated? So he tells us it had many colors. That's why it didn't have to be treated, because it had many colors. And then he says, and that's why, now what the reason he brings the Targum is like this. When he brings the Targum, when the Targum says the word Sasguna, this is not the name of the animal. There's no need for the Targum to give a name because the animal didn't exist at that time. Tachash was, and there's no need to give it a name in Aramaic. It wasn't the common name. The word Sasguna is really describing what's unique about this hide. Rashi brings the Targum, because that's why the Targum calls it Sasguna, because the word Sasguna is a description of what's unique and why there's no need to dye it, because it has its natural color. And what's the word sasguna? Rashi spells it out because you might think sasguna. See, the word sas could also mean six. There's also, it means sheish, could mean six. You might think sasguna means a six-colored dye. No. It's a description of the animal, not the description of a dye. Rashi has to spell it out. Because if he would just say the Targum called it sasguna, why would he even bring it? But because he wants to say the Targum is not giving us the name of the animal, it's giving us a description of the hide. And you shouldn't make a mistake in what the Targum means, because you could mean sasguna means a six-colored dye. He says, no, it's a description of how the animal it behaves, it rejoices in its, and takes pride in its color. So in summary, bottom line is what Rashi has come to tell the reader is, don't think that Tachashim means a specific color. It's actually referring to an animal. Why doesn't the Torah say it should be dyed, treated, the top of the Mishkan? It doesn't have to be. It is multicolored. And in fact, brings a proof from that from the Targum, who describes this creature as a creature that has multicolors and rejoiced in it. And that's what the Targum means. We need to explain there is why Rashi adds the word mispoer, takes pride. The word sasguna, sos gavan, rejoices in its colors. We're talking about a creature, not a kind of mixtures of dyes. We'll get that without that extra word mispoer. So we're going to go much deeper into this whole teaching and emerge with a very important lesson. Let's first observe the following. What are we talking? We're talking about the Mishkan, the home for God. So the home for God, the Mishkan, basically has three elements, three basic elements to it. There are the vessels inside, individual vessels, the altar, the menorah, the mizbeach, the altar, the golden table, the kir, the laver, etc. Individual vessels. Then there is the boards that surround it, like that's the building. And then you have the cover on top, of which the Tachash is the ultimate cover, the highest cover. In fact, the other two drapes draped around the side also of the Mishkan. This one was only on top, indicating the ultimate height. What does this mean? So in general, friends, everything in life, all things have three levels. Three components to them, three levels. I'll say first simple words, and then we'll elaborate. Its essence, the etzem, what it is in essence, its klal, its type, and then there are the details, the pratim. Etzem, klal, and prat. Simple example, anything, and it's all, the terms are all relative, but to speak in simple relative terms, an apple. In essence, it's an apple. Then there's a type of apple. It's a green apple. There's names for it. A Macintosh apple, a red delicious apple. Then there are the details: color, weight, taste, etc. And details and myriads of details. How many spots and the kind of color. That's the most external. So everything has, to rephrase that, an essence level, an internal level, and an external level. Another simple example: a human being. Human being, that's number one. That's the essence. Then there's the type of person that you are, talking about personality-wise. And then there's the details of the way you react in this situation, your intellect, your emotion. So everything has it. Or we can speak even physically. There's a person behind the door. I tell you, there's a human being there. You have no idea what kind of person, physically, tall, thin. Then I say, big person. Okay, so they get a general idea. Then the details, when you see him, look at him externally, you can see the details. So all things have the essence, the general identity, and the specifics. The Mishkan. The specifics are all those various vessels and the functions and the performances that are done every day in the Beis Hamikdash. And Rosh Chodesh was a different avodah, and Shabbos was a different avodah, and Yom Tov was a different avodah. And in the avodah itself, there were all kinds of different responsibilities. The Levim did their thing, the Kohen did his thing, the Israel. That's the details, the manifested details. That's one level, the kelim expressed by the vessels. Then you have the board that surround the whole thing. They give it all context, as it were. That's representative of the general idea, the general content. Quite simply, these boards around it say, this is a home for God. It unites everything in there, in one general definition identity, Hashem's home. That's the general identity of what this thing is all about. And then the tapestry on top, and the ultimate one, which is the Tachash, as we're going to look at in a minute, represents the essence of this home. The very essence. So a home has these three levels. It's a home, in essence. Then there's the type of house, and then there's the details in the house. Same thing. The type of home, the details in the home, and in essence, it's a home, which is the deepest core identity of what this place is. So here comes the big news over here. This Tachash skin, Rashi tells us, it wasn't a hide that was dyed. It was, first of all, on a physical level. If the skin itself is naturally beautiful, that is more prestigious than a hide that has to be dyed. That already justifies why it would be the top covering. But going much deeper now. And Rashi adds the word it takes pride in. It takes pride. Taking pride in something, friends, is really pride. Pride, which means dignity, the sovereign value of a human being. That's the essence. Everybody, this idea of pride, it can be used in the most terrible way, but gaiva, pride, that is self-esteem. Self-esteem, your essential value as a person. If a person doesn't have that, he doesn't have a core, doesn't have an essence. And that's a big problem that people face. Their children, is their essential worth, my essential value. Look at you and see that you have an essential value that's unconditional, that it's absolute. That's the core identity of the human being, the I. So this Tachash animal takes pride in its external colors. Its colors, which is the most external thing. And that's put on the top of the Mishkan. That's the essence of the Mishkan. If a bird's eye view, you look down, that's what you're going to see. You go down deeper, you'll see the building, go inside, you'll see the details. What's the message over here? The message over here is, friends, that the essence of a home, this is all a home for God, and the essence of the relationship is expressed in the most external details, in the trivia, the small things. Let's translate this in the following. There's 3 levels to doing mitzvahs. There's 3 levels. There's the details of it, the detail, the simple act. Then there's the kavanah, the intent that one brings to the mitzvah, the meaning of the mitzvah, not just the specifics. And then in performing the mitzvah, there are details that a person could add that won't change the general content. You've still fulfilled the mitzvah. It's still kosher. It's 100%, but it enhances. It's a detail. And like I mentioned in the past, before Mashiach comes, one of the big revolutions or innovations of Hasidism is it brought all kinds of detail that were not observed or even people were aware of in previous generations. In the tefillin, in the tzitz, in everything. And that's one of the big oppositions. People were saying for 100 years, 1,000 years, we observed the mitzvah. Like all of a sudden, no, that's in everything. Running to the mikveh, clothing, but especially in the mitzvahs, the way it's written, the writing, and then not one pair of tefillin, 2 pairs of tefillin, and it should be like this, and the tzitzis, and that. Everything. In Shabbos, observe everything. Pesach, all of a sudden, a whole new level of observance that Jews didn't do, like not gibrach, not mixing. Traditionally, this is a new thing, relatively speaking. And now, when Hasidus came along, it took a whole new level. And that was a big opposition. It was good enough, my grandfather like this, and then all of a sudden, now it's got to be. But what's the explanation? The explanation is, as we come to the end of exile, and it's all about the relationship with God, a home. What's a home? A home is where you share yourself in the deepest way, most vulnerable, deepest way with your soulmate and with your children. So here is where the details count. That's what's expressed. So the Tachash skin, which is the top, the essence of this home. Here in, and what is it? And it takes pride, this animal takes pride in the color. The color is this external thing. It's not the heart, the body, the internal organs, the life. But that defines it. It defines itself by its external color. The message here is that the essential connection is expressed in the details, the external details. To translate this in simple language, which we've spoken about, using marriage as an example. Of course, in a marriage and a relationship, the big moments have to be observed. Birthdays and anniversaries, etc. Like as with Hashem, Shabbos, Yom Tov, the big Yom Kippur. Of course, these big moments, they're significant. But what's the stuff of your relationship? Where do you see that you guys are married? Well, it's in a small, casual conversation. It's in the small detail that most people don't even notice. But that's the way you talk. That's the way you handle. That's where the essential connection is expressed. And the more trivial, externally, because if you did it different ways, okay, you didn't betray, you didn't say anything wrong, you didn't change the big picture, you said or you didn't say, you came, you didn't, the way you looked, the way you didn't look, you didn't change the big picture, everything is fine. But that's really where the connection is, in the subtlety, in the detail, the attention to detail. That's where the home lies. So that's what this message here is, that the Tachash skin, which was at the top, very, very top, which represents the essence of this home for God. Here the dye is its color, there's no dye. The color is integral to the very body of the animal. The animal takes pride in it and identifies, I am in the detail. It's simple, I am in this color. That's what I am. Message, Hashem is saying, our connection is going to be in the small details of life, not just the general. We were kids in school. Our teacher used to always have with us. And the kids a bit older. He says, if you look to make a calculation of one's life, you got to get close up. You step back. The further back you step, it's very good. I'm a nice guy and an observant and a good husband. You go back and the details blur. It's good. So why not? But that's not a proper calculator. To go closer and closer and closer. And it's not like what we're saying now. It's not like, okay, they're nice if you have those details. They're nice. I'm not saying it's not nice. We're saying that's where the connection is. When you remember the details, the small things, and you're aware of them, and you're attentive to that, that's where the connection. And if you didn't do it, life goes on. It's true. That's the paradox. That's where it lies. So that's the message. Rashi is saying that the animal rejoices and takes pride. Pride means its essential identity is what? In the external color? Yeah. In the externalities, that's where the real you is expressed. Have a wonderful day.